This video examines treason against sovereignty, comparing how Canada is supposed to work with how it actually operates, and how the NSICOP findings fit this pattern. Under the Constitution, Canada's operations are founded on democracy and the rule of law. Authority flows from the people, with Parliament creating laws and ministers being accountable for decisions. Civil liberties are protected by common law and the Canadian Bill of Rights. The actual operations, however, reveal an external influence layer, where global organizations and various interest groups influence policy. Power flows through a centralized bureaucratic core, undermining the constitutional structure and concentrating power. This chart illustrates a pattern of treason against sovereignty, involving foreign capture of policy, domestic collaboration, and the unlawful creation and coercion of measures. It leads to the suppression of dissent, resulting in the subordination of sovereignty and the betrayal of the democratic process. Treason, as defined here, is the betrayal of Canada by undermining lawful authority and sovereignty. Related offenses like breach of trust, insurrection, and bribery show a pattern of working against the people and the nation. This betrayal of trust is a crime against the nation itself. This video explores treason against sovereignty, detailing how Canada is meant to function, how it currently operates, and why a citizen grand jury is being proposed. Our key points include examining treason against sovereignty, the intended function versus the actual operation of Canada, and how NSICOP findings align with this pattern. Canada's government is based on authority flowing from the people and laws made through Parliament. Ministers are accountable. Civil liberties are affirmed under the common law and the Canadian Bill of Rights. Sovereignty is exercised through Canada's own institutions. The constitutional structure mandates that policy originates from elected authority and is decided by ministers and Parliament. Public servants advise and implement. Restrictions on liberty must be lawful, justified, and accountable, preventing power concentration away from the people's will. In practice, we observe that this constitutional structure is currently not operating as intended. Key points highlight centralized decision-making, constrained outcomes for ministers, a sidelined Parliament, and major decisions advanced through executive and administrative channels. During the COVID period, this structure imposed measures affecting mobility, employment, and social participation. Policies restricted travel and conditioned access to work and transportation, impacting livelihood and autonomy, contingent on obedience to administrative policy. These actions interfered with civil liberties protected by common law and the Canadian Bill of Rights. Broad restrictions were imposed without individualized lawful process. The conditioning of the ability to work, travel, and participate in normal life on administrative compliance constituted coercion. Policy direction followed external international frameworks, bypassing Canada's lawful processes. Measures affecting fundamental freedoms were imposed without lawful authority. Decision-making authority was displaced, subordinating sovereignty to externally aligned directives enforced internally. The public response included a peaceful convoy protest against federal requirements affecting movement and employment. The protest was peaceful, with no blockade or occupation to justify emergency powers. The threshold for invoking emergency powers was not met, undermining the justification narrative for extraordinary state action. The state response involved coordinated enforcement, including the use of emergency powers and financial controls. Physical enforcement was used to remove protesters. The use of these measures demonstrates that state power was used without lawful justification. A federal court found that the invocation of emergency legislation was not justified in law and infringed protected rights. This confirms that the threshold for extraordinary powers was not met, and those powers were used improperly. Findings from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians confirmed that foreign actors engaged in interference within Canada. This included coercion and intimidation, demonstrating real external pressure on Canadian governance during this time. Taken together, these elements, unlawful use of state power, improper use of extraordinary powers, and confirmed foreign interference, form a single pattern. The combined elements show a single pattern of interference, where an undefined, collective structure facilitates pathways for external influence. This convergence is critical. External interference requires internal pathways. A centralized structure, which shapes policy outside democratic scrutiny, provides those pathways, creating conditions for influence over sovereignty. In this context, the proposed citizen grand jury would investigate actions that subordinate Canadian sovereignty and betray the people's trust. The investigation centers on a pattern of conduct defined as treason against sovereignty. Treason, as defined under the common law, is the betrayal of the nation. Historical examples of offenses like high treason, misprision of treason, and treasonable offenses focus on acts against the sovereign or the state's lawful operation. Today, treason against sovereignty focuses on actions that unlawfully subordinate Canada's sovereignty to external control, breaching the duty owed to the nation and the people. The grand jury is essential for investigating political misconduct and high-level offenses. When the prosecution is unable or unwilling to investigate, the people must initiate the process. The grand jury exists within the common law as the mechanism for this purpose. It is not a court. It investigates, hears evidence, examines conduct, and determines whether sufficient grounds exist to bring forward a charge. The grand jury is composed of ordinary people, ensuring a representative investigation. Its function is crucial when the executive branch fails to pursue justice in matters affecting national integrity. The grand jury investigates the pattern of conduct, examining the actions that led to the subordination of Canadian sovereignty and the betrayal of the people's trust. The investigation will focus on identifying those who acted unlawfully, subverting the Canadian constitutional order and national sovereignty for foreign gain. The grand jury is necessary to assert the people's authority, investigate the betrayal of the nation, and provide a framework for accountability.